Welcome to our informal Planning Commission, April 14th, 2021. Before we get started with everything, a couple things I wanted to address. One of the things is, and I'm bad at this myself, but I had to talk with WA this morning. Staff their time is just as important as ours. And when WA sends us out something to meet on Thursday mornings, he's going to send an invite out now for your calendar invite. And just to accept or not accept, okay? Because that man's very busy, and he wants to know who's going to show up at these Thursday morning and who's not going to show up. And unfortunately, I could not make this past Thursday. So just hit yes or no if you're going to be there or not, so WA knows what to expect. We really appreciate that. Next, we have some questions for staff. And I think Mr. Alcarez wanted to start that off.
I didn't know we were doing that this first thing, but that's cool. Yeah, after what happened with City Council with STRs, I was just I was shocked. But beyond that, I just want to ask the planning staff, because I'm being asked by the public, Bobby. Their next step is to, if they want to do it and keep tabs and keep a log, they just want to know so I can tell them when they call in for a complaint, do they call the police, the non-emergency? Do they call 311? And then beyond that, how do you get that complaint? And what they're concerned about is if they're going to be watching one property because they've got concerns, they want to make sure that it's logged with your department and that your staff is following through, so that if they do want to pursue and approach you to go back to City Council to review that CUP, what is the process? They just don't want to feel like they're being lost in some loophole. Do you have that staff ready to go to take the complaints? Because I think it's coming.
Mr. Alcarez, that's a very good question as we go into this time with short-term rentals probably being pretty heavily used this summer. We are putting into place folks to handle that. We do still have a team that is handling the short-term rentals. So the best way right now to call in a complaint until we can get some of our other things stood up right now is to call 311. 311, and we have had conversations, and our team has had conversations, and we will continue to provide them information, and they'll send us information when they get a complaint about a short-term rental. Now, that's an operational complaint. If there is a safety issue, if there is overcrowding, that is not something a zoning inspector is going to handle. That's something they need to call the police for. So we just want to make sure that the public's understanding of what our what we're able to do is understood. It's, the zoning inspector sure will document the issues and then bring that information forward, and we may go forward with a revocation of a conditional use permit. But if there are safety issues, if there are overcrowding, if there's a party, that's not a zoning issue. That is a police issue, and they need to contact the police.
Okay, so 311, is that 24/7? Is that available? Yes. So I know for what I've dealt with, if I had an issue, my issues are 2 and 3 in the morning. So is 311 available?
It is available, and
okay.
It won't get it. Of course, we'll get to it the next day.
Yeah.
Typically, what'll happen is if it's on a weekend, they'll call me. So
okay.
So I've gotten a number of 311 calls during the weekend.
Okay.
What we will have stood up is a phone. This is part of the process we're putting into place, is a separate hotline number that will go to our our short-term rental third party that will automatically generate a complaint letter for us as they get these complaints. And we will go and do inspections and follow-ups and other things based on that. They'll help us log that information, but we're still building that program up to function the way we want it to.
Okay. When it goes to 911, does the police dispatch, or is there some kind of notification that the planning department gets daily or the next business day?
Right. So we're working with that with the chief and his team. We're trying to make sure that we close the gap that we had there. So for any of the complaints that we've had on these recent ones, I've been notified pretty immediately as it's gotten to the police, then to the city manager. It goes directly to me. Okay. So it's not the most efficient way. We're working on a way to make that more efficient, as if a police officer is out, for who do they need to contact so that we can get that information together.
And then, so that the adjoining neighbors or neighbors across the street or whoever calls, are they contacted that property was reached out to see? Are they informed on what was done at that time? So they're aware, because that's the thing, they're feeling they're left out.
Typically, if it's a violation, if someone calls in a violation notice, we just do the violation process. We don't notify someone of what happens to someone's violation on their property. I think you can technically go into a cell and see if a violation has been in the citizen access portion to see if there is if a violation or where it's moved forward on. But they could go in and see what our system says it's done. But if we're doing our investigation, we don't typically contact anybody else because we're dealing with a violation. So they can call our office and find out what the status is, which has happened before with any zoning violation. But we won't we won't be able to give them details, especially if we plan on writing them a ticket or writing them a civil penalty or take something on to court. That's information typically we won't share as we do the enforcement process.
Is there a way to share what we just talked about with the public?
Yeah, we can make sure that we have the appropriate contact information. We'll put it on the website. The website's been utilized heavily by the public, and so we can put that information right there so they know what to do.
All right, well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Jack?
So, but what about if they're not even registered? Like they're not even a registered STR, but they're operating as an STR.
Well,
And there's
so
complaints, not necessarily that they're operating, but that neighbors are complaining about them. But then they're not even registered, so it's you can't really enforce it because they're not even on the city's. The city's not even tracking it.
it's still considered a zoning violation. So right now we would write them a civil penalty for operating without approval. So that's the process that would move forward. And every time that we get called out, that's the process we've put in place, and we're working through that right now. Again, these other properties that weren't the most recent properties that we had complaints about, they are not, they weren't even legally operating. So we've sent them violation notices, and the key is, though, for those is that they've pulled all their operations off and they've ceased operating. So.
Bobby, do you also hear from the non-emergency numbers also from the police department? So if somebody calls a non-emergency number, not a 911, do you hear from that also?
I'll have to check to see. I've gotten the phone call on the weekend from 311, and I've gotten direct information from the city manager, the chief, when something happens during the weekend. But I don't know about the non-emergency.
The reason I'm asking, because people have asked me before, I don't want to call 911, but I don't want to call 311 either. But they're, if they call the non-emergency number, then they'll send a police car out eventually.
Yeah, we are working with the police so that when they come across a short-term rental, who they need to contact on our team. So we're actively talking about that, the most efficient way to utilize their resources and the planning resources to do that.
Okay. Mr. Inman, did you want to have any questions? Or
Oh, yes,
okay.
I do. Following up on one thing that George was talking about, and then Bobby responded with that the public is accessing the website a lot about STRs, I guess you were just saying in general. What exact website is that?
It is the vbgov.com/STR.
Okay,
So
good. When the 5-year review is done, is that an automatic thing that comes up on somebody's calendar at the planning department saying, the STR at 401 Dove Street is now about to expire. It's time to review records to see if there are any violations. Let me stop there. Is that a process that exists?
right now it does not exist. However, that is the plan. So we're getting, in July, we'll be getting 2 dedicated short-term rental inspectors to go along with the existing team we have. And it's going to be a team that only deals with short-term rentals. So Will and Summer, who have, Will splits his time a little bit helping with regular zoning matters, but they will be handling this as a group with Will being the lead. And so they're coming up with their processes for how they do these inspections. Now, keep in mind, we are doing yearly inspections that will come up because there's a yearly permit, and then there's the 5-year review. The 5-year review doesn't have to, we do not have to, if there are problems with the property before the 5-year period, as it comes up in these yearly reviews, we do not have to wait for the 5-year to bring it back to city council to request revocation.
Right, okay. So when they're accessing information, are they accessing police records as well as zoning department records?
That's part of the gap we're closing with the PD right now. So we want to make sure that we understand what's going on there. The hard part for some of the reporting that we're getting, of course, it doesn't say this property was where something happened. A lot of times the complaints come from the street. But if we do get if there's a response to a specific address, then we can get that information from the PD. And that we will try to utilize that information as we get it.
Okay, thanks. Now, moving on to statistics. In working on these overlay districts and what we have proposed last month, we are talking about putting a cap on the number. We used a percentage. There's some possibility that council may think it's better to place a number on a particular number. But to do any of that, you got to have accurate statistics. So one of the sources of those statistics, I would think, would be the Commissioner of Revenue in licenses or permits or whatever you call it, registrations that exist, whether or not they have a conditional use permit from us, because we know that's happening. I think we've been told in the past that we're not entitled to know the statistics from the Commissioner of Revenue's office. Is that a fact, or am I missing something?
We haven't posed that general of a question. That number we may be able to request. There was the specific information on if a property was registered at the correct time. That was the information. We may be able to get more global information that they report. So we would have to ask that question.
I heard it suggested that we couldn't have that information because it would reveal tax information about a citizen. And we don't want tax information. All we want is a name and address.
Right.
Somebody who has a registration for a short-term rental with the Commissioner of Revenue.
I'll clarify that comment. So the way the Commissioner of Revenue obtains the information from someone that has registered prior, mostly this deals with people that are represented by real estate companies or real estate agent, because they send in, the only way that they know that they were registered or how they obtained that registration information was because someone paid the taxes for the property. It was, so because they obtained it utilizing their power to obtain, to collect the tax or to claim it from the property, they cannot share what property is associated with what paid it. So that's why we can't obtain that specific information, but we may be able to get more higher level information.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have an opinion from the City Attorney's Office about whether or not we can have that information, to what extent we can have that information, because we're going to be relying on statistics to calculate either a percentage or a number. And that statistic should include anybody who's operating an STR, whether they've got an appropriate conditional use permit or not. If it's operating, it would be presumed they're operating if they've got a registration with the Commissioner of Revenue for an STR. You'd say, well, I think they're probably operating.
We have been through the issue a couple of times. Am I reverberating?
Nope.
It's because you're talking into the microphone. Take the headset off, Kay. There you go. And turn your microphone back on. There you go.
Okay, sorry. We have been through this a couple of times with the commissioner asking what we can and cannot have. They will not give us any information that identifies the property to the person. State code doesn't allow them to do that. It's considered tax information, and it cannot be released to us.
Okay.
We tried every angle. We had the finance attorney try every angle we could think of to get the information, and we cannot get it. And we cannot order a constitutional officer to give it to us. So you're not going to get that kind of information from the commissioner.
Where else could we get it?
I don't know that there is anywhere else to get it. We could go through and try to figure out who is grandfathered, but that too is going to be a process. I mean, that's going to be something we're going to have a process for. We're going to have to, I don't think this number or this percentage is going to be an exact number or percentage. You're going to have to estimate it because we don't have an accurate record of who's grandfathered.
So, Mike, I just want to add in.
I'm not really willing to give up on that quest.
I'm sorry.
Including,
We have given up on that quest.
No, including going to a legislator and asking for legislation that would allow us to have the information.
Well, you wouldn't
It's
get that
ridiculous.
information.
Ridiculous we can't have that information.
Well, we wouldn't get that information until next July.
Well,
not
whatever
21 or
whenever we
22.
can finally get it, you know?
So, Mike, to piggyback on, so Bobby, you gave me two numbers a while back. One was the number of grandfathered STRs, which was 1,657, and as to date, the STRs that have been approved with conditional use permits was 144. Now, we know that the real estate companies do short-term rentals. Do they not report who their short-term rentals are? When one of them came to speak, I guess the last meeting we had, I specifically said, how many short-term rentals do you have at the north end? That person replied, approximately 60. Does the city not, do you all not have that number?
We do not. So
You're not-
So can we get those numbers? If we can't get them from Phil's office, why can't we get them from them? If they are operating and conducting business with short-term rentals, why can they not be requested to give us that number? So we have some, I know it can't be exact, but somewhere within 20 or 30.
So we can. So this is the thing, right? So we got bombarded with conditional use permits, and it did everything from my staff to just keep up with the conditional use permits. Technically, what we should have been also focusing on, which we don't have staff to do or did not have staff to do at the time, was to get the zoning registrations for every short-term rental that was supposed to, the zoning permit, I don't want to call it a registration, but the zoning permit that they needed to have to tell us that they're operating and who's representing them. Technically, what we can do now is we can go in and send a violation notice to everybody that's operating that we find in our third-party system and say, you have not registered with us, you need to come prove that you're grandfathered or you have a conditional use permit. But that would be thousands of zoning violations that I need to have staff to then go through each one. That is why we do not have the number. When we were moving forward in this process, we didn't have the third-party software. We didn't get that until later. And then two, we were hoping and expecting the operators to come in and do the right thing. And we've only had 300, 400 of the operators come and submit applications when we know that there's 1,000 and 1,200 more that need to come in and do that.
Defined operator?
The actual address. So they're supposed to give us the actual address of the property.
The real estate company?
And
And they have not done that?
No.
So why not? I mean, why hasn't that,
I'll be honest, we do not have the resources to handle 1,000 zoning violations and to hunt them all down right now.
I'm just asking for the number. I'm just asking for these real estate companies to come forward and say, we have 62, we have 84, we have 92. I'm not asking, for whether they're in violation. We're looking for a number of how many are actually operating in the city of Virginia Beach and where they're operating so we can get a density.
Right, and so that's the number that I gave you. So the best number that I had was the best available information. So on November 4th, when I pulled that information from our third-party vendor, I pulled every short-term rental that was listed that they found listed on November 4th, 2020.
So we can assume that that number, as accurate as you can get, is low, because we don't have the reports from the real estate companies.
I would not call it, I mean, if you want, so legal or not legal, right? So if you base that number that I pulled down from that system against the number of the 1,600 grandfathered STRs that we have, that
Right.
number was larger. The number on that list was much larger than that. So that number is taking into account that there are people operating not legally out there.
Okay. Would that number include the real estate companies
Yeah, so it's anybody,
that manage them, the
so-
people that manage?
the third party goes in and pulls all the listings in Virginia Beach and tries to match them to an address in the city, using Zillow, using all the resources available to them to say, yep, this is this property, here's how we got it, and that's how we have an address, that's how we know. And so then it lists, it doesn't really have the real estate company per se, but it has the listing and it has the actual address of the property. That's what's shown, that's what is given to us.
By the third-party service.
Yes, that is correct. Yes, sir. So if you're looking for a number of that we have that could possibly exist at that time, on November 4th, 2020, when we pulled that information down, that is the number that could have possibly, again, as an estimation, based on the best available data, that is the possibility of legal and illegal that are operating in the city.
And we have that by address.
That is correct.
Okay.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Costin?
Mr. Tahan, if, when the citizens, I'm kind of concerned about what, I can't think of your name, but George talked about a minute ago. If a person calls, so the decision of who to call, the police or 311, in the future, do you think you'll have enough people that someone from the enforcement side can handle that call? Say instead of them trying to decide who to call, if they call 311, someone within your office make the decision who needs to respond. I'm thinking like maybe a standby person or something.
I don't want my staff from the other end of a phone to try to determine the safety issue that's happening on the other side, right? So that's not, we can't do that. Now, what we will do, because of the recommendation that the Planning Commission has provided, if the council adopts it, there will be a sign that they have to post that will have the contact number of the person, and it will have the contact number that our third party will have we'll have a call center that people can call that will go directly to one of the inspectors if there's a violation and log the information. So it'll go to the call center if there's an issue and they'll contact us back. But we can't try to take the call and determine how safe or unsafe that person is. They need to make that value judgment on whether they need to call 911, non-emergency, or 311. So.
Okay.
All right. Whitney?
I have a quick question. When will council vote on the recommendation from the March Planning Commission hearing?
City Council has pushed the short-term rental hearings out. Let me make sure I got my dates correct. So May 18th, staff will provide a public briefing on the regulations that were proposed by the Planning Commission. May 25th, the City Council will hold a workshop to go through it and propose any of their changes. June 1st, they will do a public hearing on the item, and then June 15th, they will vote on the item.
Okay. What about the Old Beach recommendation? When will that be voted on?
I do not know. That was definitely deferred by City Council. So
Because that
it would
was a
have to be-
big issue. We got a lot of pressure to hear it and then it just kind of went nowhere.
correct. It would be up to the council members to bring that back or not. Right now, it is my understanding that they will not be bringing that forward.
Okay. All right.
So, Bobby, what happened, my understanding, and I don't know about the other commissioners, was we were under a 100-day limit or deadline in order for all of this to go through, and what happened to that?
We blew past the 100-day limit with the head nod from City Council that it was okay. And the City Council, it just had to be from Planning Commission to City Council that 100-day limit existed. I will say from conversations with council members, they appreciate the work the Planning Commission did. They said that the vetting and the hearing from the public that you did was spot on and the time was needed. So I will tell you that your work is not unappreciated. They did say that they did appreciate all the extra work you did to get the input from the public, so.
Any other questions? All right, that was good discussion. I'm probably going to have more of these. We're probably going to have more of these throughout the year. Let's move on. Unless you have something, Mr. Tan, you want to, anything to add or start?
I did, but I wasn't expecting that many questions, so I'm sorry. Get a second to pull myself back together. I had something. For those that don't know, Mr. Barnes has a medical issue he has to deal with. Amanda contacted me this morning, so just keep him in your thoughts. She said he's doing well, but that's why Mr. Barnes is not attending today. So I did have something else. Hopefully it'll come to me. We can go straight to the staff briefings, Mr. Chair.
Sounds good.
I am playing the role of Kevin. I'll talk about all of them.
Welcome.
I'm just frazzled. I don't know.
Yeah.
We have 4 ordinances today. The first 2 are budget ordinances. That means you all will vote on them, but they will be in the budget itself, voted on by City Council. They won't come separately like most ordinances go up. They will go in the budget, okay? The first is we have established a permit fee, a zoning permit fee for short-term rentals that will be paid yearly by everyone who is running a short-term rental. Oh, I don't know how to do that. Sorry. Everyone who's running a short-term rental, it will be $200 a year. And we'll do a process of doing that, whether we do it all the time or whether we say everyone pays on January 1. We'll decide which way we think that would work better. There is no discussion in the ordinance. But that will come as a budget ordinance on May 11th.
Okay, one question. Is that the business fee or is that the zoning fee?
That's the zoning.
So they have to get a business fee too?
They have to have a
Okay.
business license, they have to do all that stuff that the commissioner takes care of. Okay? Money will be used for extra inspectors, for things that we need, perhaps overnight, weekends, that kind of thing. Next one.
Real quick, are you going to, Kay, are you going to come up here and do all 4 of these for us during consent agenda?
Yeah.
please? Okay.
Okay? Consent agenda.
Bobby's 200, okay, you want us to up it?
$200 based on the number that we came up with through the budgeting process, assuming with the by right approvals, we'd get approximately $450,000 to operate the program. So we think that's a reasonable number.
Great.
I didn't make that up.
I mean, if the planning commission wants to recommend a different number, we're okay with that as well.
I'm not kidding.
All right, I'll make a motion that we go to 500.
Get that in the budget.
Can we do that? Wait, hold on. I don't know if we can do that.
I want to make sure you're covered because I have a feeling you have a pretty big task ahead of you.
We do have a big task ahead of us, so we don't disagree. I mean, they can make a recommendation, right, Ms. Wilson?
These are going to go as budget ordinances, I would repeat. The budget has already been printed and has already been sent to council. Now, You can make a recommendation, and we will make sure that budgeting puts that recommendation somewhere in the budget.
I have a question. This is not, I understand it's going in the budget, it's already been printed, but it's not money that the city's spending, it's money the city's bringing in. Can this be amended?
It can't.
We can get it,
I
we
mean-
can get it into the budget, but it's not as easy as if we go up and say, okay, this is your version. We will do the 500 if that's what you want, but let's have a vote.
Do that
I
now?
saw that, yeah. No, we can't do that now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we
We're
can't do
just
that now.
doing
Yeah.
weird things. 500,
All right, so we're gonna
Yes.
hear this one.
we're gonna hear this one.
Got it. Thanks, George.
Okay. Second one is about telecommunications towers. And we're establishing, the state, a few years ago, established 2 routes of telecommunication review. One is administrative, and one is a standard process. We had never put the amount of money that would be in the ordinance. So that's what we're doing now. We're saying, okay, if you are an administrative review eligible project, which means your cell tower is under 50 feet, but not a small cell, that your review is $350. If you do standard, which is what we normally have, or just standards, you pay the CUP fee of $1,050.
Okay.
Okay?
Everybody good
That's
with
just
that?
setting review money. Consent?
We'll put that on consent.
The next one are revisions to telecommunications. This is 207 and 232 of the ordinance. Mainly, this is just housekeeping, things that we needed to change that we hadn't. We had used the locality, we should use the city. So that's really just housekeeping and cleaning that up. And the last one amends all of the use tables. We have taken out most of the conditional uses and made them permitted. Try to remember that these are only towers and small cells and building-mounted antennas that are on private property. Anything in the right-of-way is completely different, would not go to zoning because we do not zone the right-of-way. So that's why these are done this way. Most of them are permitted because we are waiting on the FCC to give an order that would definitively establish zoning requirements as well as right-of-way requirements for cell towers. The FCC's had that a couple years, and we don't know that they won't have it another couple. So we went ahead and changed it to what we think would be the best process.
All right. Any questions on these? Yep, Jack.
Mr. Wall.
So did you say how often is this administrative review? Is it yearly?
Yearly.
Yearly. And what does it entail?
No, the administrative review for the cell towers. Okay, administrative review for the cell towers is simply looking at the paperwork. If you recall, when we changed the ordinance itself a few years back, there were lots of stuff we can't do anymore. No more balloon tests, no more landscaping, there's a whole list of things. That does not mean that we won't have those things, because I would like to tell you that the cell companies who have come in have been very forward. Oh, we always do the balloon, and they do the balloon. You know, we always landscape them, we'll landscape them. So that they have been doing the things they don't have to do.
To clarify, Mr. Wall, so administrative review just means staff has to review it and approve it. It's just the approval
come here.
process. The standard review is essentially the conditional use permit for the larger cell towers over 50 feet. So that's, it's bifurcating to meet the state code requirements, that's all.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay?
All right, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. This next application is item 5. This is an application for a street closure of a half of a 15-foot wide portion of an unimproved alley adjacent to 737 Vanderbilt Avenue in the Croatan neighborhood. The applicant is requesting to incorporate this land into their adjacent residential lot. The lot contains a single-family home with a fenced-in backyard, and the area to be closed is fenced-in and has been used and maintained by the applicant. This request is like many of the requests approved by council in the Croatan neighborhood, and on May 2007, the other half of the 15-foot wide alley adjacent to this parcel was also closed. A viewers meeting was held on February the 16th for this request, and staff determined that the closure is deemed acceptable and would not result in any public inconvenience. Staff has received no opposition to this request and is recommending approval subject to the conditions in the report. Are there any questions?
Mr. Alcaraz?
Consent.
Okay. Item on consent. Draw item 6. All right.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
This next application is a request for a conditional use permit for a bulk storage yard for the storage of vehicles at 3962 Bonney Road. As indicated in your supplements, the applicant is requesting a withdrawal of this application to reevaluate the long-term development of the site.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay?
Item 7.
This application is a request for a conditional use permit for a group home on Lyndhaven Parkway in the Green Run neighborhood. The site is currently developed with a church that is not utilizing the entire site. So a purchase agreement has been established for the Samaritan House to purchase and subdivide a 1.9 acre portion of the site to develop a group home for youth between the ages of 14 and 18 years old who have been victimized. The applicant is proposing to build a 5,862 square foot, 2-story dwelling to house the youth. The home will be constructed of fiber cement panel vertical siding, asphalt roof shingles, vinyl windows, and fiberglass doors. As shown on the site layout, there are 4 parking spaces to adequately accommodate the employees and visitors, as the residents will not have vehicles on the site. The home will operate 24 hours a day and will have 3 to 4 staff members managing the day-to-day operations. There will be no more than 1 to 2 staff members on site at one time, with 1 staff person staying overnight. Staff has received 2 letters of support from the Green Run Homeowners Association and the Holy Apostles Church adjacent to the proposed group home. Staff was made aware that the school to the north has changed their support of the application and is in opposition of the request, as they have concerns about the proximity of the building to their school without a privacy fence, and is concerned that it could affect their business. After the applicant was made aware of the concern, they revised the site layout and the landscape plan to show a 6-foot-tall wood privacy fence along the northern property line to provide privacy for the school. The revised plans were included in your supplemental package. The owners of the school have signed up to speak in opposition, so we probably will hear this today. Staff is recommending approval of the request, subject to the conditions in the report, as the group home will provide a much-needed and valuable service to the community, is compatible with the surrounding residential and institutional uses, and it would not change the character or adversely affect the neighborhood. Any questions for this one?
Mrs. Klein? Okay, all right. Anybody, I have a question. What's the school north of this that you're saying?
It's a monastery school.
It's a
to
private
the
school?
north. Yes, it's a
You have-
private school.
You have access to it from the cul-de-sac?
Yes, you do.
Okay. All right.
And so their concern is that the building is too close. The engineers will be here today if you have any questions. Their concern about moving the building is that there's a sanitary sewer that they need to connect to the northeast corner, and by moving the building, it will be more costly to do so. So they have compromised and decided to put a privacy fence in between the two.
Okay. Jack?
Was that the latest site layout?
Yes, this is the
That's-
latest.
Okay, all right. And so they intend to put a privacy fence, 6-foot
Right.
privacy fence on the right side, or?
That's
to the-
correct.
Okay. And that driveway, I guess, is over, It's towards the property that's in opposition, is that right? Like the driveway?
Yes,
that's-
yes. It's closer to that school, which you can
Close
see
to the
on the site plan.
So we're going to hear this one.
Yes, because
Okay.
there are opposition.
All right. So we can put this on here. Okay.
Ms. Klein, as a reminder, if you plan on abstaining, you do have to disclose. Yep, okay, just making sure.
She's ahead of the game.
Mr. Costa?
Is this near a similar type home?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Any other
Okay.
questions?
Any questions? All right, on the next one.
Okay. This application, is a request for a subdivision variance to section 4.4B of the subdivision regulations for property located on Pocahontas Club Road. The 30.1 acre parcel is currently developed with an existing single-family dwelling within the AG1 and AG2 agricultural districts. The applicant is seeking to create 2 lots from the 30.1 acre parcel, a 4.5 acre lot to contain the existing single-family dwelling, and a 25.6 acre residual parcel which will continue to be used for farm purposes only. As the proposed lots does not meet section 402B of the zoning ordinance, which requires a minimum of 15 acres of land per dwelling unit outside of water, marsh, wetlands, and floodplains subject to special restrictions, a subdivision variance is requested. The estate is composed of family members who wish to liquidate their land holdings. To do so, the family members would like to settle their portion of the estate to convey a portion of the tract to their daughter who currently resides in the single-family dwelling on the property. Both lots will meet the dimensional requirements for parcels within the agricultural districts. To protect the environmentally sensitive parcel, the applicant has agreed to limit any future residential development beyond the existing single-family dwelling and to not further subdivide the parcel, which means the 25.6 acre parcel will not be a buildable lot and will remain under cultivation as noted in condition 2. In staff's opinion, this subdivision will not adversely affect the character of the area as the property will seemingly remain as currently developed with the exception of the added property lines to sub the property into 2 lots. Staff is unaware of any opposition to this request and recommends approval of the request subject to the conditions of the approval. However, staff was made aware by the applicant's representative that they would like to request a reword of condition 2. The applicant agrees with the condition under the current circumstances, but feels it restricts them from possibly redeveloping the residual parcel if additional parcels are obtained in the future. Staff assured them that this condition is for this proposal and a modification of the subdivision variance can be obtained in the future. Staff is not comfortable with the reword of the condition at this point unless it is clear and provides specific verbiage to protect the environmentally sensitive area and that it holds the intent of the zoning ordinance in agricultural districts regarding allowable density, and that it provides a safeguard for future owners in regards to how the site should be developed. Condition 2, in staff's opinion, provides these protections. Any modifications to this request will require them to come back before this commission and city council to ensure that the property is protected and developed properly. You will most likely hear this application as the applicant's representative would like to state his concerns.
Okay. Mr. Horsley, you have any questions or concerns?
I've met with the applicant's representative is the surveyor, and his concern is that if in the future the one person owned the whole 30-some acres again, and he would like to be able to relocate that lot somewhere on there. I think that's what you'll hear from him today. But basically, it's just trying to get this estate settled for this family, and that's his major concern. I talked with him ladies yesterday, and that was his concern. That's the reason he wanted to speak today. I think he says he's concerned that if someone in the future ended up with the house lot and the cultivated lot, they may want to relocate that dwelling, somewhere. That was my understanding. But other than that, I'm fine with the consent. But
Okay.
But if he wants to speak, we'll have to give him.
Right.
I mean, we can put it on consent and allow him to say that if you want to. Allow him to say what he wants to. Is that
There
good?
is no
What if we change the modification, if we change the recommendation and we have to hear it,
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Well, we
So-
can hear it. We
I
can-
mean, it doesn't matter to me. We can,
It's fine. That's his main concern. So.
probably better just, let's let him talk
let's-
about, hear it real
yeah,
quick.
just hear it. It won't
Okay.
take- it
All
won't
right.
take- it
Yeah,
won't take long.
Okay,
All right.
sounds good. So number 8, we're gonna hear. Marcel, 1 second. We need to back
Yes.
up real quick.
Okay.
Number 5, we didn't get a reader for number 5 application in the Beach District. Would you like to do it? There, thank you.
George's got a lot on his plate. I can see
Thank you. Can you see? Okay, thank you. All right, now, that was number 8. We're gonna hear number 8. All right, on number 9.
Okay. The city is requesting to rezone a vacant parcel from R5D duplex to R75 residential on Bob Lane in the Oceania Gardens West neighborhood. The property was acquired on February 3rd, 2014, as part of the city's acquisition program to prevent further development of incompatible uses in the APZ1 accident potential zone surrounding NAS Oceania. When the site was acquired, it was developed with a residential duplex. The duplex has been demolished, and City Council has approved each half of this lot to be sold to the adjacent property owners to be incorporated into their existing lots. The property will be re-subdivided to eliminate the interior lot lines and is being rezoned to prevent dual zoning on the newly created lots. Staff is unaware of any opposition to this request and is recommending approval. Are there any questions?
So, the lots will be R75, or?
Yes, they'll be R75.
Okay.
That's what we're rezoning to.
Yeah.
Currently, the lot is R5D, and in order to split it, they want it to have the same,
And no opposition?
no opposition.
Consent.
Consent.
Oh, go ahead,
Yeah.
Jack.
That's downzoning, because you're taking it from more dense to less dense. But
The city owns it.
the city owns it, and it's, the neighbors are in favor, of course, so.
Yes. And the two lots that are getting these two portions are already zoned
Already
R75,
zoned.
so it's not going to be
Okay, just wanted to.
a downzoning in their opinion.
All right, anybody want to read this one? Marcel, since this is a city application, would you mind just coming up and just doing a couple sentences?
There is a city representative,
Okay.
Jennifer Dew, who is going to be here to present this item.
Okay, so she'll do that at consent agenda for
Yeah, it'll
us?
be on consent if
Okay,
there are
perfect.
no
Okay.
ones to sign up.
And what is her
And
name?
then Jennifer Dew, she's
Jennifer-
from
okay.
Public Works.
All right. All right, that's 9. All right, on number 10.
All right, this is my last one for today. This application is a request for a conditional use permit for motor vehicle sales and rentals on this B2 community zone parcel. Community Business District Zone Parcel, located on the corners of Bacon Road, Newtown Road, and Parker Lane. The site is currently developed with a 29,000 square foot, one-story building constructed in 1969 and was previously occupied by a title loan business. No major changes are proposed to the site or to the building except for the proposed building signage and the 8-foot-tall monument-style brick-based sign on the property. The applicant is proposing to display up to 74 vehicles on the site. As required by the city's zoning and site plan ordinance, a minimum of 10 feet of street frontage landscaping, foundation landscaping, and 12% display interior landscaping is required. The existing street frontage landscaping does not meet the zoning ordinance standards and is located within the public right-of-way. So the applicant is proposing to install additional trees within the street frontage to help improve the aesthetic for the site and provide additional screening from Newtown Road, Baker Road, and Parker Lane. The applicant, is seeking a deviation to the foundation landscaping required along Parker Lane and the 12% display area interior landscaping requirement. In lieu of the foundation plantings along Parker Lane, the applicant will install additional plantings in the street frontage, and staff believes that the enhanced street frontage along Parker Lane will help to mitigate this requirement. A deviation is also being requested for the interior display area landscaping as required by Section 5A.4 of the Site Plan Ordinance, which states that the perimeter of the designated display area be landscaped with at least 12% of the total display area, which in this instance is 1,440 square feet. The applicant prefers not to remove existing asphalt to meet this requirement and has opted for a deviation. The applicant has worked with staff and agreed to plant a hedgerow of landscaping along the grassy area along the northeastern boundary of the site, totaling approximately 750 square feet. While the display area landscaping requirement is deficient by about 650 square feet, staff believes that the proposed landscaping will enhance the screening of the site from the public rights-of-ways and supports the deviations requested. According to traffic engineering data, the proposed auto sales establishment would result in a decrease in traffic generation. Staff is unaware of any opposition to this request. The proposal meets the requirements of Section 239 of the zoning ordinance for motor vehicle sales and rentals, so staff is recommending approval of this request, subject to the conditions in the report. Are there any questions?
Questions? I know this is my area. In my lifetime, this has been a couple gas stations, Hertz Rent-A-Car. So I think any type of doing something nice to this building is going to help out, because right now it's just sitting there empty. So I'm in favor for consent. Everybody else is? Jack?
So this site, there's not going to be any visibility issues with, I guess, on Baker, with those new trees on fronting Newtown Road?
No.
Okay. Yeah, the site has some challenges with those two massive towers,
Yes.
and power poles. And then that one lane, in discussion with WA, that they have to keep that lane open because there's an easement that goes through the property. I guess where that, where it says that red property line is located, the wording, that there's
Yes.
looks like a pump station, so I guess they have some kind of an easement to access that through
That's correct.
that lane.
That's true. So the only thing with that is that we don't want the display area to block that entrance because it's for utility vehicles only. And so the applicant revised the plan to make sure the display area was not in route of that entrance that is there, because there is an easement that allows them, that entrance to remain.
So is this a new is A&G relocating off of Virginia Beach Boulevard, or are they expanding?
I'm not sure about that.
Because they've got a pretty substantial site at Dorset and in Virginia Beach Boulevard.
They're not relocating. It's just
This is new, is that what, okay, maybe it was said that and I just missed it. But, so it's just an expansion. Wow, because they've got cars packed all over that site. But it looks like they're limited in the location that they can site the vehicles on
That's
this, based on this schematic. So, okay, yeah, I'm just,
Good consent? Okay. Who wants to read this one? Somebody does. I know somebody does. Thank you, John.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, number 11.
All right, next one is going to be mine. Good morning.
Morning.
The applicant is seeking a conditional use permit to operate an 800 square feet craft winery with a 3,800 square feet wine tasting room within Suite 110 through 113 at the shopping center along Lyndhaven Parkway. The craft winery will occupy Suite 113 and requires a conditional use permit approval in order to operate within the B2 zoning district. The wine tasting room will operate within Suites 110, 111, and 112, and does not require a conditional use permit since eating and drinking establishments are permitted uses in the B2 district. There are no changes to the proposed exterior of the building. The existing number of parking spaces on site meets the parking requirement of Section 203 of the zoning ordinance. In staff opinions, the proposal is acceptable given that the land use will be compatible with the existing business along this section of Lyndhaven Parkway. The site is located within the 70 to 75 noise zone within the APZ2. The zoning administrator reviewed the proposal and determined that the proposal is in compliance with the zoning ordinance. The NAS Oceania Planning Liaison also reviewed the request and concurs with the planning administrator determination. Staff recommends approval of this request, subject to the conditions listed in the reports. And staff is not aware of any opposition to this request. Are there any questions?
Questions? Jack?
Yeah, I guess they're relocating off a Newtown Road.
That's
Is that
correct.
right? Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Consent.
Consent.
You find somebody to read it? You gonna read it? Okay, all right. All right, now the next one.
Item 12 is a modification of proffer request. The applicant is seeking to amend subsection H of proffer 2 associated with the 2004 modification of proffers in order to omit cement fiber board as a building material for the construction of an office warehouse building. This is the site condition today, it's vacant. Staff find the proposal to be acceptable as the surrounding building consists of an industrial warehouse character. The proposed building will contain an office building appearance with high-quality material and architecture design that is consistent with the comprehensive plan recommendation. Staff recommends approval of this application, subject to the conditions noted in the report. Staff is not aware of any opposition to this request.
Jack, does you again? Consent, okay. You gonna find somebody who wants to read this for you? Okay, thank you, Mike.
All right. Item 13, the applicant is seeking a conditional use permit request to operate a motor vehicle sales on 33,000 square feet parcel, Zone B2, Commercial Community Business District. The proposal will occupy the existing 2,500 square feet building that was formerly occupied by the BB&T Bank. No alteration to the exterior of the building is proposed. 3 parking spaces are required. The proposal exceeds the parking requirement. The submitted site layout shows designated vehicle parking display area along the perimeter of the site with parking for customers and employees located behind the building. The proposal appears to meet the street frontage and designated display area landscaping requirements. A final review of the landscaping will be completed during site plan review. Staff find the use to be compatible with the surrounding area. There are similar automobile-related service uses along this stretch of Indian River Road. Staff recommends approval of this application, subject to the conditions noted in the report. Traffic engineering reviewed the request and commented that the access point closest to Indian River Road on depositor lane needs to be closed, since it's too close to the intersection, creating an unsafe condition. Condition 3 is recommended for the closure of this access point. The applicant is not agreeable to this condition. 1 letter of opposition was received for this request from the adjacent property owner noting concern related to traffic and decrease of property value. In addition, there is a speaker that is rest assured to speak in opposition of this request.
All right, so we're gonna hear this one. Okay. Number 13, we're going to hear, all right? Sounds good. Number 14?
Item 14, the applicant seeks a modification of condition 11 in order to, condition 11 associated with the modification of condition request that was granted by City Council in 2014 in order to install a freestanding monument sign along Cherry Tree Place. Condition 11 prohibits the placement of a sign along Shore Drive or Cherry Tree Place. It is not clear why Cherry Tree Place was included in this condition. The proposal has been reviewed by traffic engineering and commented that the proposed sign location will not cause site obstruction to vehicular traffic at this intersection. As the property is located within a short drive corridor, the Bayfront Advisory Commission reviewed the request on March 8th and comments that the length of the monument sign to be reduced from 14 feet to 8 feet in keeping with the short drive corridor design guidelines. The applicant submitted revised plans that meets this criteria of the guideline. Staff recommends approval of this request, subject to the condition noted in the report. One letter of concern was received by staff noting concerns related to site obstruction.
Whitney, this is you?
So at this point, you don't expect any speakers?
There are no registrars speaking. That's pre-register at this time, but we may have walk-in.
Okay. I mean, as long as nobody comes in, I'm okay with consent.
Consent? Okay, we're put on consent unless we hear something. Would you like to read that one? Thank you.
All right. Item 15, the applicant seeks an after-the-fact conditional use permit for an outdoor recreational facility, a baseball field, on an 8-acre parcel zone AG2 Agriculture District, which is developed with a single-family dwelling. The city received a complaint on the subject property on October of 2020. The zoning office inspected the site and served the property owner with a notice of violation for operating the outdoor recreation facility without a use permit. The applicant completed the construction of the baseball field in 2014 and was unaware of the need for the conditional use permit or site development permits and has submitted this application in order to rectify the oversight. The baseball field is utilized by the applicant's children's baseball teams. Practice are from 3:30 to 7:30 Monday through Friday, and games on the weekend during baseball season, which is about 16 weekends per year. In staff opinions, the proposal is acceptable. The subject property is a large 8-acre agriculture zone parcel where this type of use is considered to be appropriate in the southern portion of the city. If properly operated, the recreation facility could be a benefit to the community similar to public parks and fields, providing cheering and education for outdoor activities in the area that is otherwise lacking of large outdoor recreation spaces. As noted in the report, there are several improvements done on the property without proper permits. Condition 12 is recommended to rectify this oversight. To ensure that the proposed use would not pose detrimental impact to the surrounding property, staff recommends conditions to protect the character of the community, the outdoor recreation use, and the enjoyment of the adjacent property owners. Based on the considerations stated and further detail in the report, staff is recommending approval of this request, subject to the conditions noted in the report. The applicant is not agreeable to condition number 8, which limit the number of vehicles on site to no more than 30. One letter of opposition and 4 letters of support was received for this request. The opposition is the adjacent property owner, noting concern related to noise, traffic, and incompatible use. The 3 letters of support would not, the 4 letters of support would, does not reside within this area.
All right.
Are there any questions?
Mr. Horsley, you?
Very familiar with this piece of property. I used to farm it, in fact, years ago. And I think the baseball field is an excellent thing. I think, if you all look at this pack of information here, I think you'll see whether they live in the area or not. I mean, it's a great thing. And the people I talk to in the area are very supportive of it. The gentleman right across the road there, he says, Don, I can't see why anybody would want to deprive youngsters of being able to play baseball. And as far as the neighbor, some people you just can't reason with, you know. So I guess that's a situation that they have to live with a neighbor. But I've got some concerns with some of the conditions myself. I think some of them don't need to be put on there.
But I think we're going to hear it.
I guess
Yeah.
we'll hear it. That'll give Mr. Burdon a chance to
Yeah,
to do his thing, but.
He signed up to come speak.
But I'll let you know some of my concerns about the conditions. I think the signage, removal of the signs, I think that's, arbitrary thing. I think that the banners that they put on the outside fence, I was up there Saturday afternoon, and unless you own the property, you don't see the sign, so, and they just kind of acknowledge people, their supporters, and I think that's fine to do that. I had some concerns about the number of the vehicles. I mean, the gentleman has plenty of parking on his property, and I think really, to be honest, I think you just eliminate number 8 altogether, as long as he keeps them on his property. I think one of the other conditions states that everybody has to be parked on his property. It can't be parked on the right-of-way. So, I mean, if he puts 50 cars in there, he's got room to put plenty of cars if he wants to. And he expressed to me the idea that, this pandemic has affected a lot of things, and now people is opening up, and, he's getting more people who want to come watch the kids play, like grandparents and, whatever. So therefore, his number of cars may increase, but like I say, he has plenty of room to do that. So I asked him about the netting. He said that he would put it up, but I said, really, a net stuck up out there in the middle of the field for 12 years old. I said, how far is it from home plate to your property line? He said, around 300 feet. I said, well, if a kid can hit the ball over that, I want to pat him on the back and shake his hand, because a 12-year-old kid hit a dinger 300 feet. That's pretty good. But he said he was willing to do that if that was needed. But I think in the past, his older kids had some home run derbies or something with the high school boys, and maybe they went into the neighbor's backyard or whatever you want to call it. It's not a manicured yard. It's just basically a field that gets mowed a couple of times a year. But I'm not sure what the permits that we're talking about for the. I think we can get an explanation of that when we hear it on that. But basically, I think it's a great thing. It's been going on several years. I've seen many vehicles there, and the kids having a ball, and like I say, everybody in the area. And I don't know whether you know it or not, but years ago, right across the road from here on Blackwater Loop, directly across, there was a ball field. It was a community ball field for the people mainly the people who lived on Blackwater Loop. It was a place for the kids to go and play ball, and that was there well 50, 60 years ago. And I think one of the persons who had talked to is, are you bringing back the old ball field that some of our parents used to play on? So it's something that has occurred. And I think originally he wasn't planning on building a ball field, but I think he had a little conflict with the Parks and Rec, so he couldn't use some fields that are in the neighborhood further down the road. But so he decided to build his own, which that works too for me. So we'll hear it, but I'm truly in favor of it.
All right, sounds good. Good to hear this one. All right. 15. All right, on number 16. Morning.
Good morning. Okay, so item number 16 is going to be a modification of conditions for the North Landing Beach RV Resort and Cottages at 161 Princess Anne Road. The applicant is proposing a modification of conditions to expand their arts and crafts building, add a marina, a gazebo, event space, and ship store comfort station for private use by registered guests. So the area where the expanded arts and crafts is going to go is where those boats are parked in these pictures. The applicant realized through COVID and the fact that the campground has been extremely successful that they just don't have enough space in their current building to support guests and then also to support distancing of guests to allow all of the guests who want to participate in activities to participate. In addition, they're proposing to put in a marina to add some extra amenities for the residents in this area of Phragmites, shown by that giant red arrow. They have been working with the Army Corps of Engineers. It was originally a protected area of Phragmites. However, the Army Corps of Engineers does agree that this area is disconnected from tidal wetlands and is not serving any functional viable wetlands purpose at this point. So they have an agreement to move their protection area somewhere else with the Army Corps. That does not impact anything for city Wetlands Board because it is outside of Wetlands Board jurisdiction, being upland and disconnected. They would also like to add in this area a gazebo, an event space, and then a ship store and comfort station, essentially a bathroom to support people using the boats. The area for the events, so the event space and the gazebo, is only going to be for registered guests of the campground, so people staying at the campground. They've started to have a lot of people coming in RV caravan groups that basically travel around the country from RV resort to RV resort, and then the RV resorts will put on these, Halloween events or an Easter egg hunt or a Thanksgiving potluck or things of that nature, and they just need an additional space for these guests to be able to congregate and have these events. And as I said, they will not be ticketed or open to the general public. Here's some additional pictures of the Phragmites area. Here's the arts and crafts building expansion, the proposed gazebo, ship store, and event space. And here's some elevations. They're proposing to match materials, colors of the existing building, so everything will flow together with the campground. And staff has not heard any opposition to this request. We are recommending approval of the modification subject to the conditions in the staff report.
Mr. Horsley?
This campground, I haven't really visited the campground, but I know people who've been there, and it's really turned into a great amenity for that area, for I'd say our area in the southern end of the city. I mean, people come in for other things, other events, who don't want to go to the oceanfront. I mean, they love going there and staying there. So I put it on the consent agenda. It's fine with me.
Sounds good. It's on consent. Would you like to read this one for us?
Sure, I can take care of it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Good morning.
Good morning. So I have two applications to present to you this morning. The first is Oceanfront Investments. This is a street closure request for a small strip of right-of-way adjacent to the property that has the Marriott Oceanside Hotel, Cavalier Beach Club, and other establishments. The purpose of the street closure is to install a freestanding monument-style sign because signage has to be on the same property as what it's advertising. It's 420 square feet of land, and it will be re-subdivided to become part of the adjacent privately owned parcel. We feel that this request is consistent with the long-range goals and visions of the Resort Area Strategic Growth Area Plan, RASAP 2030, and also all applicable zoning requirements and Oceanfront Resort District Form-Based Code requirements. Therefore, we recommend approval of the proposed street closure, subject to the 5 conditions that we have recommended in the staff report.
Mr. Alcaraz.
Ms. Moss, any opposition?
No, sir.
I know I haven't either, so consent.
Consent, okay. Would you like to read that one? Thank you. Thank you, George. All right, on to number 18.
Number 18 is an application by Festival LLC for alternative compliance. This establishment is also known as The Shack. It's a request for outdoor dining and entertainment, outdoor recreation, commercial parking lot, open-air market, and recurring special events on the site with various outbuildings, structures, and signs that do not meet the prescribed requirements of the Oceanfront Form-Based Code. So, a little refresher course on the Oceanfront Form-Based Code and alternative compliance. The code provides flexibility through the alternative compliance process to accommodate unique uses and development forms that contribute to the character and ambiance envisioned in the RESAP, or in the Resort Area Strategic Action Plan, but don't necessarily follow the prescribed form as written. The code, through this alternative compliance option, lists various review standards by which City Council shall consider the extent to which the proposed development, taken as a whole, satisfies those standards. So I'll go over those after I describe the proposal. This application includes both uses and form requirements that don't meet the prescribed form. So for the uses, I'm just going to flip through some of these pictures. The proposed uses include a variety of unique but temporary, often recurring events and venues, including food trucks, open-air markets, outdoor entertainment, festivals, and fundraisers. This is a primarily outdoor resort establishment with dining and entertainment, but while these outdoor activities were initially accessory to the indoor uses, they have become more of the primary use, and many of these uses normally would require a conditional use permit, so these have been rolled into this alternative compliance application. The primary structure on the site, this shows where the masonry building is that has the New York pizza and beach yogurt. That is a component of the primary structure. There's also an interior area for the shack. I think they're going to rebrand it to call it Festival at the something. Anyway, the masonry building is 9,300 square feet on the south side of the property. The 11,000 square foot improved outdoor area has various semi-enclosed outbuildings, pergolas, decks, patios, and fencing that have been added as the business has evolved. There is, now going back again, there is, the applicant has a proposed conceptual redevelopment plan that is very unique. It's an L-shaped two-story quasi-open-air building that would be placed on the north side of the existing building in a configuration that frames the outdoor area oriented toward Atlantic Avenue. The exact placement has to be determined during the detailed site plan review, as there are several site impediments that need to be worked out. Most of the parking lot in the back would remain in place, and this is one of the primary reasons that alternative compliance is necessary, because the Pacific Avenue frontage, this has a unique situation with dual frontage. It's got frontage on Atlantic Avenue, which most of the site is oriented towards, but it also has frontage on Pacific Avenue, which currently reads like a back of house, but the conditions that are included, recommended conditions with the alternative compliance address that in order to improve that streetscape environment. So let's see. For parking, there is no parking requirement for commercial uses that are anywhere in the Oceanfront Resort District between Atlantic Avenue and Pacific Avenue. However, there is parking available One, obviously, on the site. The former 8th Street right-of-way contains parking spaces. This area was closed by the former property owner through an arrangement with the city in order, or with actually another private party, to construct the 9th Street parking garage. So there are still parking spaces there, as well as the parking lot in the back of the site. The applicant has a self-serve kiosk in the front. I think I have a picture of that. Yeah, that bottom right. And also a parking attendant structure that he would like to keep in order to provide security, additional security, especially during the later hours, operating hours. Let's see. For signage, there are a few legally non-conforming signs on the property. The conditions have allowed these to remain, but any changes would be subject to the planning director so that we can make sure they are moving in the direction of being conforming. Also, temporary signs are normally limited to 7 days, 3 times a year, but due to the nature of the uses on this property, a condition allows those to be placed throughout the year, but in a uniform location to be determined by the planning director during site plan review. Let's see. Okay, so the criteria, review standards by which we assess these types of applications include a number of different features. One, promotes modes of transportation other than the automobile, including walking and transit. This application, just by its location on Atlantic Avenue and also by promoting the use of open air forms or the open air environment, encourages the use of open air forms of transportation like walking and biking. Creating a built environment in scale with pedestrian-oriented activities. I think there is no argument that this is a visually interesting environment for the pedestrian. There's plenty of sidewalk space along Atlantic Avenue, and then the conditions for Pacific Avenue improvements will enhance and improve the streetscape along that frontage. Contributes to a mix of uses in the area that are compatible with each other. The unique activities, events, and environment at the Shack have established it as a memorable and successful place even during the off-season, which is one of the biggest goals of the RACEAP 2030 plan, to be a year-round destination. Consistent with the regulations of the street frontage, the Atlantic Avenue is a shopping street, and therefore that is where most of the activity is oriented. And then Pacific Avenue is a gateway street, which is more suited for vehicles, but it also accommodates pedestrians. Advances goals and objectives of the parking strategy. They have parking available on site, and they will also be adding bike parking to encourage means other than the automobile means of transportation. And lastly, the city council shall consider potential impacts of the proposed deviation on surrounding properties. So there are conditions recommended to have outdoor amplified music prohibited after 11 p.m. And also the streetscape improvements on Pacific Avenue will provide better screening for the parking lot and enhance the sidewalk. So based on all of these features and recommended conditions, the staff has recommended approval. Now, I sent out in the supplement package last night revised conditions. There are 12 conditions, and then I think, 3 or 4 of them were revised. If this application goes on the consent agenda, The applicant's representative did say he wants to just make a comment. They're in agreement with conditions, but he just wants to make a clarifying comment on condition number 2.
Okay.
Any questions?
Jack?
I'm just looking at the old conditions, I guess, not the revised conditions, but it says the parking attendant stand shall be removed.
So that was changed a little bit to remove, what is it? Remove, refurbished, or replaced. If a new or refurbished structure is proposed, the design and placement shall be subject to approval by the planning director.
What's the capacity of the site? Like, what's the,
I think
how
it's
many
like
people?
1,800.
1,800.
So another one of the conditions that was revised was on the bike parking. We made that a more reasonable number of
25% would be quite a few bike racks.
I didn't know, 1,800, I had no idea. That was the occupancy load. So that has been revised to 35 bicycle spaces, and then additional bicycle parking provided as needed during peak season or other special events.
I don't know if this is true or not, but it was mentioned that this is has the heaviest volume of Uber in the state. Did you hear that? It's what.
Well, good for them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. All right.
That's probably a good thing.
Mr. Acrez?
Yeah, I'm leaning towards consent. I just want to make sure with the applicant formally that they do accept the conditions or whatever they want to bring up. So I'm leaning towards consent, but I don't know how you want to do that.
Is it going to change anything that from right here? Do you just want to concerns on, or what's?
From right here, meaning the red line.
Yes. Or from your supplement, what's in the supplement package?
Yes.
Revisions, everything's okay with the applicant? So it's not going to be, okay, so we're going
Just wants
consent.
to make some clarifying comments.
No problem, okay. Any other questions? All right, consent?
I have to abstain from this.
You have to, okay. D has to abstain from this. Consent, who wants to read this one? George has had a lot due today. You want to?
I'll read it, but I'm going to shorthand it. Okay, I'll do it.
Okay, thanks, George. Okay. Short-term rentals, all right. Who's doing 19 and 20? I'm sorry?
A virtual speaker, if you give it 1 second,
Okay.
Mr. Miller, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Will Miller. I work for the Planning Department and the Zoning Administration. This first application is at 8809 Atlantic Avenue, Units A and B. It's in the Lyndhaven District. This 4,668 square foot lot is zoned R5R NE Residential District and contains 1 duplex building. The applicant owns both units within the duplex. According to city records, the duplex was constructed in 1969 and each unit contains 2 bedrooms. The applicant purchased the duplex on August 14, 2018. In 1969, the year the duplex was constructed, the city zoning ordinance required 1 off-street parking space per unit, or 2 spaces in this instance on site. In addition, parking space surface material was not regulated on the property, on properties containing 1 and 2 family dwellings until approximately 1979. Consequently, compacted gravel was a popular choice for homes built during that era. At some point, both required on-site parking spaces were removed from the property And it's believed that those spaces were adjacent to 89th Street where the decking and the patio sit currently. It's really the only place that they could have been. Thereafter, parking for the property shifted to the city right-of-way along Atlantic Avenue. Again, it's unclear when this occurred, and it occurred prior to the current homeowner's purchase of this duplex. On-street parking is permitted 24 hours per day on a portion of the eastern side of the 8800 block of Atlantic Avenue. No on-street parking is permitted on the west side of Atlantic Avenue. Additionally, no on-street parking is permitted in the 100 block of 89th Street. No zoning violations relating to short-term rental use were found associated with the subject address. The applicant accepts City Council's recently imposed conditions reducing the number of bookings in a 7-day period to 1 and limiting the overnight guest calculation to 2 per bedroom. Again, each unit contains 2 bedrooms. The site is located within the North End community, which is primarily comprised of single-family and duplex-style dwellings. The subject property sits within 1 block of the Atlantic Ocean and is positioned adjacent to the entrance to the Fort Story military base. Because short-term rental uses require 1 off-street parking space per bedroom, the applicant has proposed to correct the off-street parking deficiency by adding a new driveway and entryway apron, which has been reviewed and approved by the Public Works, Traffic and Engineering Department. As allowed by Section 241.21 of the City Zoning Ordinance, the zoning administrator reviewed and approved the proposal. However, conditions number 3 and number 4 are recommended to address the matter. Based on these considerations, staff recommends approval of the request with the conditions listed in the staff report. 1 letter of support and 1 letter of opposition was received by staff. The letter of opposition notes concerns relating to adverse effects to the character of the neighborhood and notes worries over the removal of trees for the proposed driveway that act as a sound barrier for the Fort Story traffic. I will note that if you could go to the parking plan, please. I will note that the applicant was also very concerned about the removal of the existing trees, and he worked with his surveyor to save as many as possible. There were 3 trees that possibly could have been removed. Ultimately, only 1 will need to be removed based on the approved parking configuration that you see before you. I'll stand by for any questions or concerns relating to this application.
Will, I have a question. When did they submit their application?
It was, I believe, before the October 20th deadline, but I would have to pull it up to tell you for sure. If you want to give me a minute, I'll pull that up.
Good, that's really good enough. But this new graph that has been brought to our attention here on these short-term rentals is really interesting to note that he submitted an application back then, but according to the graph that he's currently, it's advertised and he's been leasing it or renting it out for the last 31 to 60 days, and he is paying taxes. And he submitted it last year. But that's beside the point. The other biggest point is, I think I've talked to Cuppy about this. I'm doing a lot of work right now in Fort Story, and I'm driving back and forth, and the sign's been up for a while on this property. And I stopped one time and walked around the house and I go, where are these people going to park? There's no parking on this, no parking whatsoever. And now, so I'll just wait to hear the staff report, wait till the staff report comes out and see what happens. And now I got to find out they're cutting trees down to put a driveway in. And I have a hard time, as it is, putting a concrete down. But to cut trees down, to put concrete down, I can't do that. So I'm not going to be supporting this. So we're probably going to have to hear this if y'all, unless y'all want to. Yes, Mrs. Klein.
In the past, we have, mostly under consensus, denied requests where they've been operating before the permit. So I thank you to staff. I think this is a great chart that you're including now. I would also be inclined to deny the request.
Okay. Any other comments, or we're gonna have to hear this since we're denying? I'm not going to support it. We're going to have to hear this. Okay. Going to hear 16, 17.
Could I add one thing?
Sorry, yes, 1920. So I don't know how to count. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I think Mr. Miller wants to add an additional comment.
Okay.
Will,
yes,
if you
sir.
pause 2 to 3 seconds?
Yes, I would like to add that I have spoken with the applicant about his leasing, and what he has told me does conflict with what I found on host compliance with the 31 to 60 days. Now, remember, that was as of March 22nd. He has told me that the minute he found out he needed a CUP, that he ceased operations, but he will have to talk to you more about that at his presentation.
We'll definitely talk to him about that. Okay, 21?
All right. Page 21, this is in the 400 block of, I'm sorry, this is at 400 Norfolk Avenue, Unit B. It's in the Beach District. This 4,500 square foot lot is zoned A12 Apartment District and contains one duplex building. The applicant owns only one of the units within the duplex. According to city records, this 3-bedroom home was constructed in the year 2013, and the applicant purchased it on December the 29th, 2020. Parking is permitted 24 hours per day on the south side of the 400 block of 9th Street. Therefore, any overflow parking beyond the minimum parking spaces required could occur within that portion of the public right-of-way. No records of zoning violations relating to short-term rental use were found associated with the subject address. The applicant accepts City Council's recently imposed conditions, reducing the number of bookings in a 7-day period to 1 and limiting the overnight guest calculation to 2 per bedroom. The number of bedrooms in the home is 3. The site is located within the Shadow Lawn subdivision. The applicant's parking plan depicts 3 required off-street parking spaces, 2 in the driveway and 1 in the garage. Because a small portion of the existing driveway is 1 foot less in width than the city zoning ordinance requires for residential parking spaces, the applicant proposed to add abutting concrete pavers to make up for the deficiency. In this case, there's a small portion that's 8 feet wide versus 9 feet. However, a condition is recommended that assures the garage will always be available to short-term rental occupants, and the zoning administrator, as permitted by section 241.21 of the city zoning ordinance, did review the parking plan and deem it acceptable. Based on these considerations, staff recommends approval of this request with the conditions listed in the staff report. Staff has not received any letters of support or opposition relating to this request. The applicant did tell me that whatever type of paver he uses will match or be a good complement to the existing concrete. And I'll stand by for any questions or concerns that you may have.
Mr. Acres?
Yeah, I haven't received any opposition or pros for it, but Mr. Miller, where was the sign at?
The sign should be along Norfolk Avenue and along 9th Street. Now, when I went out there to take pictures, I did it before he had to put the signs up. So at the time I was there, the signs did not need to be up.
The only thing I have a concern about is that it's a duplex. Mr. Miller, are there permanent residents? Is the other half a short-term rental?
I don't know the answer to that question. I'm sorry. I'll have to let the applicant tell you that if he's going to end up presenting his case. I'm very sorry.
I just was wondering if you just happen to know. That's a concern to me.
Yeah, that's a concern to me too, because I've heard complaints of duplexes, because it's, in a dense area, it's one thing, but when you're attached to that building, that structure, that's another. And, this isn't the only one we're going to hear about that, but the only difference with this one is the parking is separate, so that provides, benefit.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
just as a reminder, through the application process, when there are, it appears that this is potentially a condo duplex. When we have situations like this, the property owner of the adjoining unit has to, or any, has to sign the application as well, or sign off on the application. So they are aware we do require that through the process, but just wanted to make sure that that was understood.
So, Mr. Ton, did they sign?
Yes, if they did not sign, we would not allow the application to move forward.
All right. My concern is, again, the proximity of the neighbor next door to the left and a residential. I'm really not going to support this. So I'm sorry to say I can't recommend consent. I'd like to hear it.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
We will hear 21. All right, 22.
All right. This is 117 73rd Street, Unit A. It's in the Lyndhaven District. This 7,500 square foot lot is zoned R5R NE Residential District and contains one duplex building. The applicant owns one unit within the duplex. According to city records, this home was constructed in 1978, and the applicant purchased Unit A on November 19th, 2020. Parking is permitted 24 hours per day within the 100 block of 73rd Street. Therefore, any overflow parking beyond the minimum parking spaces required could occur within the public right-of-way. No records of zoning violations relating to short-term rental use were found associated with the subject address. The applicant accepts City Council's recently imposed conditions, reducing the number of bookings in a 7-day period to 1 and limiting the overnight guest calculation to 2 per bedroom. The number of bedrooms in this short-term rental are 3, and the number of off-street parking spaces provided is also 3. There is a typo in the staff report on page number 2, and I will have to fix that with the number of bedrooms. I listed 5 for some reason, and that's not the case. It's 3. The site is located within the North End community, which is primarily home to single-family and duplex dwellings. The applicant's parking plan depicts all 3 required off-street parking spaces within an existing driveway, thereby meeting the minimum parking requirement for section 241.21 of the zoning ordinance. Nevertheless, a small portion of the parking area proposed for Unit A, which is the applicant's unit, does encroach into a parking easement assigned to Unit B. While the city has no authority over private easements, the applicant did provide a written statement from the owner of Unit B that allows this encroachment, thus resolving the future concerns relating to this matter. In addition, all other requirements of section 241.2 of the zoning ordinance pertaining to short-term rentals can be reasonably met by the applicant. Based on these considerations, staff recommends approval of this request with the conditions listed in the staff report. Staff received 5 letters of opposition relating to this request from adjacent homeowners. The concerns noted in the letters focus on past problems with weekly renters, a stated incompatibility of commercial businesses in residential areas, which could possibly lead to boutique hotels, and worries regarding safety, noise, trash, parking, and large gatherings associated with short-term rental use. The Unit B owner did sign the application for this Unit A applicant. I'll stand by if you have any questions or concerns.
I have a question. The letters of opposition where they said that there was the past problems with short-term rentals, did that come from this application?
The letter specifically stated that the past problem came from that particular unit at 117. However, the owners of this purchased it in November 19th, 2020. So it could have been from a previous owner.
I have a question.
Yep. Who wants to go first? Whitney?
I'm going to abstain from voting on short-term rentals until City Council votes on our recommendation and we have some clear direction. Kay, I'll need to fill out whatever I need to fill out.
Yes, Mr. Inman.
Could I have another run at that, Will, on the parking space of Unit B, or encroachment Encroachment onto Unit B's 20-foot parking easement. Where exactly is that? I see an arrow on the map, but I'm not clear.
So the entire width of the parking area is 36 feet, which is typical for a duplex. That gives each unit 18 feet of width, which would be 2 9 by 18 or 2 9-foot wide parking spaces for one unit, 2 9-foot wide for the other unit. When this home was built, it did not require 2 parking spaces like we do today. It was only 1 parking space per unit. And there is a 20-foot parking ingress and egress easement for Unit B that slightly encroaches into what would be the even split of that 36 feet. So I think it's like 2 or 3 feet. So it would leave Unit A with like a 15 or a 16-foot wide area. The owner of Unit A went to the owner of Unit B and in essence just say, hey, can we split it down the middle at 36 feet? I mean, at 18 feet apiece. And he agreed to that. So that gives each of them 2 9-foot wide spaces.
That's very clear. What is now clear also is that that's only good as long as Unit B owner lives there. So we needed something a little more permanent that runs with the land that is going to allow permanently for this 18 feet dedicated to Parcel A, Unit A.
I agree with you 100%. I feel like I have some problems with the residents around it. 5 letters of opposition. Will, has anybody signed up to speak, or do you know if anybody signed up to speak in opposition on this?
I don't know if anybody has signed up to speak. I will quickly add that if the owner of Unit B ever retracted that approval, then the owner of Unit A would be obligated to submit a new parking plan because they would no longer have the necessary width and spaces. So he'd have to add some area on site for parking. But I don't know if anybody's there to speak, registered to speak. Sorry about that, sir.
People sign up in favor of the application right now.
In favor of it? Okay. So we're going to hear it then?
I believe we need to based on the discussion.
What does everybody want to do?
Well,
Hear it, or
I'm going to, between the parking, the duplex, and the letters of opposition, I'm
Okay.
just not going to
So we're
support.
going to hear it. We're
support
going to hear this one. Might as well just hear them all. No, I'm serious, because it's, yeah. Okay, on to 23.
All right, on to 23. This is 2229 Maple Street. This is in the Lyndhaven district. This 6,900 square foot lot is zoned R7.5 SD residential district and is within the Shore Drive overlay. According to city records, 1 3-bedroom home is located on this lot and it was constructed in 1966. The applicant purchased the home on July 13th, 2012. On-street / right-of-way parking is permitted 24 hours per day. Therefore, any overflow parking beyond the minimum parking spaces required could occur within the public street. However, the street is very narrow, but since there's no curbs, most people park in the grass that's adjacent to the asphalt. No records of zoning violations relating to short-term rental use were found associated with the subject address. The applicant accepts City Council's recently imposed conditions, reducing the number of bookings in a 7-day period to 1 and limiting the overnight guest calculation to 2 per bedroom. Again, the number of bedrooms is 3. The number of proposed on-site parking spaces is also 3. The site is located within the Cape Story by the Sea subdivision, which is primarily home to single-family dwellings. The applicant's parking plan depicts 2 of the 3 required off-street parking spaces within an existing driveway. The 3rd required space cannot be fully achieved due to a slight dimensional deficiency associated with the driveway. To overcome this matter, the applicant is willing to add a small amount of additional parking surface to compensate for the shortfall. While the applicant's property does contain a detached garage in the rear yard, the location of the HVAC unit on the side yard reduces the travel lane to 6.5 feet in width, which is too narrow to safely allow passage of most motor vehicles. As permitted by Section 241.21 of the City Zoning Ordinance, the zoning administrator disapproved the use of any proposed parking in the rear yard due to the narrowness of the side yard passageway. Nevertheless, the applicant's current parking plan, which shows 3 stacked parking spaces in the existing front yard driveway, was approved by the zoning administrator with the stipulation that the additional parking surface be added to address its current deficiency. As a result, recommended condition number 3 was added to this report. Based on these considerations, staff recommends approval of this request with the conditions listed in the staff report. Staff has not received any letters of support or opposition relating to this matter. I'll stand by for any questions or concerns you may have.
Questions? Anybody? We can't ask Mr. Graham. There's no opposition at all to this, Will, you said?
I have not received any telephone calls or letters. I'm not sure if anyone has registered to speak today.
No, okay.
Let's hear it.
Direction. Anybody? Can you get some direction on this one? And no opposition, that beats everything else, so I guess it goes on a consent. Unless anybody else has any concern, we will put it on a consent. Mike?
That's okay.
Consent, okay. Short-term rental on consent, okay.
Can't believe there's no opposition.
All right, 24.
Okay, this one is at 305 16th Street, Unit A. Pardon me. This is in the Beach District. This 14,000 square foot site is zoned Oceanfront Resort Form-Based Code District. This property contains 2 buildings, a larger building and a smaller building. The larger building, which was constructed in 1934, houses retail space on the first floor and 1 2-bedroom apartment unit on the second floor. The smaller building, which was constructed in 1982, contains 1 apartment unit. The applicant is requesting a short-term rental conditional use permit for the 2-bedroom apartment unit over the existing retail space. In other words, the second floor of the building constructed in 1934. So it's only 1 application for the apartment that's over top of the retail space. The applicant purchased this property on December the 9th, 1993. The property lies within the RPPP boundary where parking during the evening and overnight hours is limited. Based on this, a condition is recommended that would prohibit the occupants of the STR from parking in the street during the restricted hours. No previous zoning violations were found relating to short-term rentals at this address. The applicant accepts City Council's recently imposed conditions reducing the number of bookings in a 7-day period to 1 and limiting the overnight guest calculations to 2 per bedroom. Again, the number of bedrooms in this apartment is 2. The subject property lies within the resort area of the oceanfront. Specifically, the proposed short-term rental use is located again on the second floor of a mixed-use building. The entire site includes 1 retail use, 2 apartment units, and 1 commercial parking lot. The applicant's parking plan depicts both required off-street parking spaces within the on-site parking lot, thereby meeting the requirements of Section 241.21 of the City Zoning Ordinance. Together with the remaining short-term rental requirements found in Section 241.2 of the Zoning Ordinance, a condition is recommended that limits the number of residential parking permit program passes to 2 and prohibits the issuance of guest and temporary passes through the program while the conditional use permit is active. Based on these considerations, staff recommends approval of the request with the conditions listed in the staff report. Staff has not received any letters of support, nor have I received any letters of opposition relating to this request. I'll stand by if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you.
George?
Yeah, I haven't received any emails. I mean, my feeling, it's in the right place, the right district. My major concern is the mixed use with the age of the building. I think there was a fire there some time ago. And my concern, Mr. Tahan, I don't know if an inspection can be done, but now that, we're gonna be actually turning it over more often with, on a commercial type use with the, short-term rentals. I'm just concerned with the condition and mixed use and whatever happened when the fire, whatever caused the fire, maybe, Mr. Costin can pipe in on that.
I don't know of a fire there, but I believe that's kind of what we're going to nowadays. Looks like at 31st Street, everything's commercial on the bottom, residential on the top. They call it a taxpayer, I think, or something like that. So I'm sure that the commercial side will get its routine inspections as well as the short-term rental.
Well, I don't know what short-term rental inspections are out there. Like I said, I'm just concerned with the age. I don't know when the last, not that we've ever required a structural inspection, but I'm just letting you guys know my concern with the age of the building.
Mr. Tan?
As far as we're aware, we have not gotten any complaints about the structure or itself, either a housing or property maintenance complaint. So it would be treated like an existing apartment unit that, or a dwelling unit that we've seen. Again, as you noted, Mr. Alcaraz, we haven't looked at or requested any other type of report or structural report for any of the other potential uses similar to this. So,
Well, then can I ask the applicant some questions?
Sure.
I'll try and make it short.
Sure.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll hear this one. 24. All right, on the next one.
All right, folks, this is my last one today for you, or with you. This is 4503 Guam Street. It's in the Bayside District. This 7,230 square foot lot is located within the R5R SD residential district and contains one duplex style dwelling. The applicant only owns one side of the building. He does not own the abutting unit. The abutting unit owner did sign the application for the short-term rental conditional use permit. According to city records, this duplex building was constructed in 1989 and the applicant's unit contains 2 bedrooms. The applicant purchased this home on September the 11th, 2020. On-street parking is prohibited on the south side of Guam Street, but is allowed on the north side of Guam Street. In addition, on-site parking is also permitted on the east side of neighboring Seaview Avenue. Therefore, any overflow parking beyond the minimum parking spaces could occur within parts of the north side of Guam Street or the east side of Seaview Avenue. No records of zoning violations relating to short-term rental use were found associated with the subject address. The applicant accepts City Council's recently imposed conditions reducing the number of bookings in a 7-day period to 1 and limiting the overnight guest calculation to 2 per bedroom. This R5R SD zoned lot is located within the community of Chesapeake Beach. The applicant's submitted parking plan depicts 2 required off-street parking spaces within an existing concrete driveway, which meet the requirements of Section 241.21 of the city zoning ordinance. Based on these considerations, staff recommends approval of this request with the conditions listed in the staff report. Staff has not received any letters of support or opposition relating to this request, and I am unclear if there's anyone signed up to speak on either case, support or opposition. I'll stand by if you have any questions or concerns, and I thank you for your time today.
Again, in this duplex, I take it the person next to this man signed off on it, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
I went out and looked at this. I mean, you got a duplex, you got parking up front. There's no opposition.
Mr. Miller, did you just say this person just purchased this side of the duplex?
This was purchased on September the 11th, 2020 by the applicant.
So I just have, it's a duplex. I can't.
Okay.
It's a new,
You want to hear it?
I'm not going to support it, so.
Okay, we'll hear it.
Okay.
Here, 25. Yes, Jack.
So what is this that, do the neighboring duplexes know what they're signing? I mean, is it? I mean, I'm not saying that in a negative way. It's
No,
just saying, what's on there that it, and you may have explained that before, but if you could explain that again, because I'm just curious what it.
We haven't gone as far as requiring them to sign as a disclosure statement for their side, but they do sign something noting that they do understand the person's applying for a conditional use permit for a short-term rental. So, also, there's a sign sitting in front of the
It's a sign
property,
sitting
so,
in front, yeah.
right, so
Yeah,
and they're right next to it, so, I mean, it's, the information should be available to them.
Okay.
And I will add that this was deferred last month, and that sign's still out there. That sign's been out there for well over 60 days. Anyway, all right. Item 26.
Good morning, Planning Commissioners. This next item is Victoria Mason, located at 304 28th Street, Unit 207. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Okay, I'll start again. Good morning. This applicant is Victoria Mason, located at 304 28th Street, Unit 207, zoned OR Oceanfront Resort District. This condominium is located in the Playa Rana condominium. There are 42 condominiums. There are 2 on-site parking spaces that will be used to fulfill the parking requirement. City Council has previously approved 5 short-term rental units on this property. The applicant can reasonably meet all requirements of Section 241.2 of the zoning ordinance for short-term rental use. The applicant is agreeable to the recent City Council condition changes. No letters of opposition or support have been received. I'll stand by to answer any questions.
Mr. Acrez.
Yep, as I said before, it's a perfect landing for STR, so consent.
Okay, this one will be on consent. Everybody good with consent? Consent. 26 on consent. All right. Number 27.
The next agenda item. The next agenda item is Tanika Crew, located at 3236 Winterberry Lane in the Centerville District. This is an 11,894 square foot parcel zoned R5D residential. This single-family dwelling contains 4 bedrooms, thus 4 off-street parking spaces are required. There is an existing 9-foot by 26-foot driveway that is used for parking and is 36 feet long if you include the right-of-way, for a total of 9 feet by 36 feet driveway. The applicant submitted an alternative parking plan. It is the applicant's intention to widen the existing driveway and driveway apron to accommodate additional parking spaces. These proposed improvements include 2 on-site parking spaces and 2 parking spaces partially in the right-of-way. As the 2 parking spaces within the right-of-way do not block vehicular or pedestrian traffic, the zoning administrator has deemed this plan acceptable. If the request is granted, a condition is recommended that requires the placement of the driveway addition within 60 days of the City Council public hearing. All other requirements of Section 241.2 of the zoning ordinance regulating short-term rentals can be reasonably met by the applicant. The applicant accepts the recent City Council condition changes. Staff has received 2 letters of support, with 1 letter being from a current tenant of 3236 Winterberry, a long-term rental at this time, and 4 letters of opposition, as well as a petition of opposition. Staff has also received a letter from the applicant herself, Tanika Crew, addressed to Planning Commission, as there may be the possibility that she will be unable to attend the hearing today. I'll stand by to answer any questions the commissioners may have.
Is there any opposition speaking? Oh, so we're going to hear this one? That was signed up? Okay, so we're going to hear this one. Ms. Klein, do you have any comments, or you just want to wait until we hear it? Isn't this you, Centerville? No. Yeah. Oh, this is Princess Anne. I'm sorry. No, it's really Centerville. Is it Centerville? Where are we at? What number are we on?
27.
Oh, it says Princess Anne. What does the application say? The application says Centerville. Where are we at? Centerville, Princess Anne? It doesn't really matter, we're gonna hear it. Yeah, we're gonna hear it, okay, okay. All right, we're gonna hear this one, 27, all right?
That's Princess Anne.
Okay, on 28?
The final item is Colin Tomlinson, located at 304 28th Street, Unit 111. Zoned OR Oceanfront Resort District, located in Playrana condominiums, 42 condominiums on this site. 2 on-site parking spaces can be used to fulfill the parking requirement. 5 short-term rental units have previously been approved by City Council on this property. The applicant can reasonably meet all sections of 241.2 of the zoning ordinance and is agreeable with the recent City Council condition changes. No letters of support or opposition have been received on this item.
Yeah, but consent again, it's a perfect location.
All right, on consent. And that's all right, correct? We're done? Jack, do you want to go through this? We're going to go through this real quick. what we're
Okay.
doing.
I've got, so I have none for deferral and one application, number 6 for, to be withdrawn. On the, to be heard, I've got agenda item number 1, 7, 8, 13, and 15, and that's on the regular agenda. And on the consent agenda, I've got 19, 20.
Hold on a second, stop. There's terminology. Short-term rental to be heard.
Short-term rental, right, that's what I meant. Short-term rental to be heard. I didn't, yep. Short-term rental to be heard is 19, 20, 21, 22, 24, 25, and 27.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Yep. On the consent agenda, I have agenda item number 2, 3, 4.
Kay's going to read those, right?
Okay.
Ms. Wilson's
Okay,
gonna read
Wilson's
those.
going to read those. Ms. Wilson. Number 5 and D is going to read that one. Ms. Oliver. Number 9, City of Virginia Beach is going to be read by Public Works staff. Number 10, A&G Auto is,
John?
I've got on, I don't have who's going to read that one.
Yeah, John.
Oh, John, Mr.
You're
Costin.
number
Okay.
10?
Okay. Number 11, Mr. Graham's going to read that one. 12, Mr. Inman. 14, I don't have the,
Mr. Whitney Graham.
Mr. Graham again, okay. 16, Mr. Horsley. 17, Mr. Alcaraz. And 18, Mr. Alcaraz again.
Right.
On the consent agenda for STRs, I've got 23, 26, and 28.
Sounds good. Everybody in line? We're good? All right. Who, have we ever found that prayer?
I brought it with me.
All right, who wants to read it?
Well, I've
You will?
got it. I might
Okay.
read it.
Dee's gonna do the prayer. Who would like to introduce, remember, Mrs. Klein? Okay. And the pledge. Don? Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. We are set. Staff, we are good?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We are adjourned.